There we go. So we are recording. Cool. So yeah, hi everybody. Apologies for that little mix-up there. It's always good to see that, I've still got it in me to really balls things up there. So anyhow, let's move on really rapidly. Right, yeah, as always, thank you everybody for joining. There's our meetup team. Yeah, Matt, I don't know if you can let people in. I've still got room lock on. Oh, that's George. There we go. So there's our meetup team. George has just joined us as well. Hi, George. How you doing? I completely messed up the links tonight.
That's all right.
As always, yeah, you all right, matey?
Yep. Thanks.
Good. Right. So as always, this is a community user group. So we put them together. I know I always say this, but we genuinely do try and put them together. And what we've been trying to do is kind of go like an infra kind of mix of talks and sessions, then a bit of a dev themed session. We kind of alternate and mix it up a little bit. But if anybody's got any good ideas, or they want to speak, or whatever it is that you've got, please do reach out. They're all the people behind the scenes that you can reach out to. So please do.
John,
obviously, there's Matt. Yes. Hello.
You need to update that.
Yeah, you're right. I'm just reading it then. Yeah, I still got my old job on there, haven't I? Well, you never know. I might be back there now after the announcement today. But yeah, so like I say, just reach out. Feel free on Twitter, on LinkedIn. Come and say hello, and yeah, join in. The more the merrier. So onwards and upwards. So tonight, yeah, as always, we always tend to get some really great speakers, and I guess in tonight's no different. We're gonna kick things off in a second with Johan coming on to talk about VM applications and what can be used in AVD essentially. So that's going to be a really great session. So looking forward to kicking that off with Johan very soon, and then hopefully Sameer will be joining us as soon as I get the correct link over to him and make sure he's got it. To give us a good overview of Azure Stack HCI. So, really looking forward to that as well. Timings-wise, usual stuff. Hopefully, I'll finish up in about a minute or so. We'll kick off with Johan, followed by Sameer, about 40-45 minutes each session. And then we have got our WAUG quiz. WAUG, is that a word? W-A-U-G? I've just made it a word, haven't I? So, yeah, stick around for that. Always good fun with Matt's quizzer. Quiz engine. I mean, is that what you call it? A quiz engine? I guess so, isn't it?
Yeah, it's had a lick of paint as well. So,
and just I know I keep bigging Matt up here, but if you haven't seen Quizzer, it's well, describe it, Matt. It's something you've developed off your own back.
Yeah, so it's Kahoot,
yeah,
but not Kahoot. It's
open source Kahoot.
And it's a Blazor, SignalR. All sorts of shiny Microsoft technologies powering it, and a few more in the pipeline. So it's a interesting way to interesting experiment.
Yeah, no, it's great. So yeah, stick around for that after, and yeah, we'll have some Amazon vouchers up for grabs there as well as usual. Okay, quickly moving on. Housekeeping rules. I should say this: we had a little bit of a weird incident last month with some people, hence which is why the room lock is on. But hey ho, hopefully they've moved on to pastures new now. Unless people on the call are going to start making really weird noises, then I'm sorry, I'm going to have to boot you. But please be courteous to each other. As always, there's no silly questions here. This is a place of learning and exploration and asking all the questions that we need to ask to find out what we need to find out. So please use the chat facility to ask those questions, and obviously stay on mute unless you're invited to speak. That would be a great help to stop those strange noises coming through and disrupting the speakers. And like I say, please feel free to ask any questions in the chat. And look, if you've got an answer to the questions, join in, make it interactive, help each other out. Let's do that. We've got a little QR code at the end to leave feedback. Really appreciate if you can spare us a couple of minutes just to fill in some feedback. That'd be great. And yeah, like I say, the quiz will be kicking off after the second session. So yeah, be interactive and mainly have fun and enjoy the sessions. Oh, there's Sameer now. I'll pull Sameer in and just say hello. So hiya, Sameer. We're just going through the intros. So I'm glad you got my my updated link there. Apologies for that. I dropped a bit of a boo-boo. Cool. So yeah, there we go. So thanks, Sameer. Just a quick shout out. You'll see I've modified. Unfortunately, we've gone down to one sponsor now with the user group. So Servant have been a mainstay with us as a user group since the start of the Welsh Azure franchise. Is that a thing? I don't know. I'm making all these terms up here. I'm making it sound like it's some kind of a big thing. But anyway, Servant have really been, massively supported. Des and the team at Servant, great partner of Microsoft as well, of course. So, thanks to those guys for helping us with things like prizes, and obviously when we do in person, other bits and pieces. But all in all, they've been a great support. So big shout out to Servant. And I just want to add, obviously massive thanks to Admiral and NetApp as well for the support over the last couple of years. And unfortunately things move on, and they it is what it is, so we move on. There we go. Shout out for those of you interested in user groups. There's on Meetup, if you search for the Azure Tech community or Azure Tech groups, you'll see there's, I think it's up to about 150 groups now globally. So if you want to find an Azure Tech group, of course, you're in one of the best ones as it is. You can't really go too far wrong. But there are equally as fantastic groups out there. So please do feel free to reach out to those and join their sessions as well, and show the support, because it's always welcomed when we get people in to support the speakers and the group. So have a look at that. I mentioned this last month, but we've been given a code if you are interested in attending SQL Bits this year on the 14th to the 18th of March. It's actually in sunny South Wales, down at the ICC, which is not far from me actually, or you for that matter, Matt. It's just on the M4 down by Newport. So if you want to get 5% off, there are I think there's a free day and there's a couple of paid days. So if you want to use that code, you can get 5% off your ticket. So hopefully I'll see a few of you there. And there we go. So that'll be enough of me rabbiting on, and I'm going to hand you over to our first speaker. So welcome, Johan Vanneuville. So nice to meet you, Johan. I'll hand straight over to you.
Okay, then I will start with trying to share my screen, and hopefully it will work. Just let me know if you can see it.
Got you. Yeah. Brilliant.
Okay, perfect. So thank you, John, for having me. So first of all, and good evening. Welcome to my session for this evening. For this evening, I am going to speak about VM applications, and if you can use them in combination with AVD or not. Let me just trying to get my next slide. Yes. So for the people who don't know me, I live in Belgium, where I work as a system engineer for a company called Gips Technology. Been working with them for nearly 7 years now. And most of the time now I'm concentrating on Azure projects and of course Azure Virtual Desktop also. Last year in August, I was awarded with the Microsoft MVP Award in Enterprise Mobility, which is still a great honor to have, basically. And also last year, because I blog a lot also about Nerdio, they awarded me as well with their Nerdio MVP Award. I'm also the founder of the Belgium Azure Virtual Desktop user group, which has its first live session tomorrow also. And if you want to connect, you can follow me on Twitter or on LinkedIn, or follow my blog, which I update quite often. The main topic for this evening, of course, is VM applications. So we're gonna also walk through different ways to install applications first, because there are also a lot of different ways to do it. Talk about VM applications, of course, and what they are, the prerequisites to use them, quickly go over the Azure Compute Gallery also, because you need it for the VM applications, different ways to deploy them and to remove them as well. And of course, answering the most important question then for this evening, if you can use them in combination with AVD, of course, and if there's still a time left I think we will still have time for a Q&A, and I'll be in the call also afterwards, so you can still ask them as well in the chat. So different ways to install the applications. Basically, the first one that there is, not sure if everybody has experience with it, MSI Accept Attach. Basically the same process as with FSLogix, that your application is containerized, and basically when the user logs on and he's in a specific AD group, the application will be attached onto the session host for him. Plus point of that is that you can keep your base image as clean as possible. It's one of the options that you have to install the applications. The downside is to this one that you have to package all your applications again, because it's a different method, of course. But it's a great method to use, of course. The other one that we have is the golden image. I think everybody will know the principle of using the golden image, that you install all the software on it, and then you sysprep it and you capture it, and then you can use it as a base for your session hosts. In combination then with the golden image, you can go for the option to use FSLogix upmasking also. So basically what does it do? You install the other installer for FSLogix, where you can create your own app rules. So basically you can say, for example, for Chrome or whatever application you want to use, you create an app rule, you create an AD group for it, and you say only the people who are in that AD group will be privileged basically to see the application. If they are not in that AD group, it's not only the application itself that will be hidden, but also the folder in the app data, program files, everything related to an application. If the user isn't in that group, it will be hidden for them, so they can't use it. So it's also a great option to make sure that your users have the correct applications for them. And the other method, of course, is by deploying them via Intune. This is the last option that you have. So basically, if you're enrolling your devices in Intune, and if all of your applications are already packaged in Intune, you can easily distribute them to your images, to the session hosts. The plus point of this as well, if you do it through Intune, that you don't have to create a golden image. Your image is clean, and basically you can use the marketplace image and create session hosts each month by just using the latest marketplace image, and you will be sure that you got the latest security updates in that way. And you can update your applications also to them very easily. But then the VM applications, and what are they exactly? So basically, the VM applications rely on the Azure Compute Gallery, and I'm just quickly gonna do a raise hands for the people who already have experience with the Azure Compute Gallery. So there's one person. Okay. So basically, the Azure Compute Gallery, what does it do? It's a service in Azure that you can use to distribute, first of all, your images, of course. So you can create your golden image. You can put it in the Azure Compute Gallery, and you can also say that the Azure Compute Gallery needs to replicate it to your DR region, for example, that you can provision your session hosts in your DR region, or in another region, for example, if your users are in the US and in West Europe, that you put your images in both of the regions. So the VM applications also need the Azure Compute Gallery. The same principle, basically, and I will show it in a minute how it works to deploy basically your image of the VM application definition, and then the version, then how you can install it. But of course, there are some limitations to the VM applications that you need to be aware of. If you don't think of them, basically, you can be screwed, to say it bluntly. So basically, to go back to the images, if you want to deploy your images in one region, but you need, for example, more than 20 hosts, you need an extra replica of your image. Also the same thing with your VM applications, but you are limited with the VM applications to 3 replicas per region. You can configure this, and I will show them also during the demo in the properties of the version, and you can also choose to which regions you want to replicate them. Very important. If your installation fails of your application, you won't be able to retry them. So basically, it's installing them. If it doesn't work, then you have to uninstall the VM application from the session host and start over again. Basically, my tip for this would be, because it's an install script in the background, try the install script first on a machine. If it works, then deploy the VM application version, because then you will be certain that the installation will work. Otherwise, you will have to do a lot of troubleshooting. And I've done it in the beginning when I was testing VM application. I think for one application, I had to retry 10 times or so to get it working. So a piece of advice, try the script first on the machine before you deploy the version. Also important, if you want to use the VM applications, that the max amount of the applications that you can deploy for each of your hosts is 5. So if you need, for example, 10 applications on your machines, then you need to think of combining the VM applications with another delivery method. For example, if you want to put some applications in your golden image or to Intune, you can just remember the limit of 5 applications per VM. Also important, the max file size of your application itself, because you need to put the application on the storage account in Azure, and the file size there is 1 GB at the moment. So if you have an application that is a bigger in size, then it won't be suitable to deploy it as a VM application. Also, if you have a script and during the script the machine needs a reboot, then there's no guarantee that it will work. So basically, only try to deploy applications that you're certain about that don't have a reboot. For example, in the demo, you will see a simple application, the Notepad++. That doesn't require a reboot. And also because, and you will see it also in the Azure portal in a moment, if you install the VM application, in the extensions blade, there will be also an extension installed for the VM applications. And for that, for the extensions to work, you need the VM agent on the machine itself. Otherwise, it won't work. And then the last limitation, for example, if for Notepad++ in this example, if you want to test a new version and install the new version on a machine where there's a previous version of Notepad++, it won't work. So you will have to uninstall the previous version and then you can install the next one. And a small tip, and you will see it in the installation script in a moment as well, that if you install an application, you need to give it a version. I've seen a lot of people entering a version number, for example, a 1.0.0. It makes it very difficult for people who need to troubleshoot to verify, okay, with the version 1.0.0, which version of Notepad++ an example is that really? So just the version in the script, put it the same version as the application. In this example, it will be 8.4.8. So it's easier to recognize the version that is installed on a machine like that. Also, the last limitation, of course, if you need to move your host, for example, to a new region, for example, you will have to uninstall the VM applications because it's not supported to move them, the VM with the apps installed. So remove them, then move the VM, and then install them again. A little bit about the Azure Compute Gallery, because I touched it already. Azure Compute Gallery, a system that you can use to share the images and also applications now across regions. You can do versioning, of course, also with it as with the images. You can do that, and also now with the applications. So it's basically one of the two major components of, for the VM applications to work. If you don't have the Azure Compute Gallery, it won't work. So you will have to create it. One of the other prerequisites of the VM applications is your storage. So you need a place where you can store the executables of your applications, of course. Be aware that there are some security things that you have to consider while you're doing this, because the Azure Compute Gallery needs to be able to access as well the storage account where your applications are in. So if you restrict all the access from public, it won't work. Also, you can, in the script, you will see it, that you can use a direct link to the installer, and then you just have to make sure that the network access is open so you can access it, of course. You can also use a SAS token. I'll show it in a minute also how it works, but be reminded if you're in a company that restricts, for example, the storage access keys, you will restrict also the SAS tokens. They won't work anymore. I've tested it, and indeed, if you block all the public access, your access keys and your SAS token, it will stop working then, and your install scripts basically to create new versions, they won't work as well. So that's really important as well to know. So we have a couple of different ways to create basically your application. So I'll show it in a minute in the Azure portal as well. Basically, first you have to create an application, a definition, the same way as you do with your image, and afterwards you create an application version. So the application definition, it can be created in two ways. Either you go to the Azure Compute Gallery and you click on the definitions and on the add button, and then you create your definition like that. Or you can do it through PowerShell, as you see in the slide as well, where you just have to enter a couple of your variables. Then if you do it like that, then you don't need to be in the portal. Of course, if you do it by script, then you can be certain if the script is correct that there won't be any errors, of course. So, and also, if you do it inside the portal, you will have a much more settings that you need to enter, for example, as well. So, but I'll show it in a minute in the portal. And then for the application version itself, because you need the definition first for Notepad++, for example, but then you need your application version, because the application version, it mentions where your installer is at. As you can see in the package file link in the command, it mentions here the complete link where the installer is in. As I said before, if you block the access to your storage account, you won't be able to access it. A different way is to use a SAS link here so that you can access it like that, but then you also need to provide the access, of course, to your storage account. And basically, for what does it do? The application version, with this command, you don't need to enter, for example, the update script, because you can also use an update script, but if you use the PowerShell command, you don't need to use that. So basically you enter your resource group name, the gallery name, and then also the location, of course. And then the install script is basically the most important one. So it will move your application, the executable, and then it will execute it on the machine as a silent installer. And also, if you create an application version, you enter the remove command. Basically, if you install the application version, it will copy the installer and it will run the installation command on your session host. And if you then press, and I'll show you in the Azure portal, the remove button, it will remove the application in the backend from your device, and you don't have to log in each time when it happens. You can just be logged on to the VM itself, and it will be installed in the background then. So in the portal, if you want to do it, you can see that the install script in the uninstall script is default. Yeah, you have to enter it, but you have the option as well to create an update script. Update script, I've seen it malfunction already. So to be honest, I'm much more of a fan of creating the new application version and then swapping the versions on your session host. That way you are certain that your application will install and you don't need the update script. And you can also, if you create a new version, of course, exclude it from latest. During a demo, you will be able to see that I'll create a new version, and then during the installation through the portal, you will see two versions that are available to install. So this is the window that you will see when you're in the portal and you try to install it. And I'll show it during the demo as well. Basically, you can install it through the portal, but of course we want to automate stuff. It's easier like that, and there's less chance in a mistake, of course. So it's a PowerShell script that I can just do a git command and ask for the prefix of my session hosts. And then for all of the session hosts that returns, it will apply the VM application in a loop. And I will not show this command during the demo because it simply takes too long, but I will show it to the portal that you can see it to there. And I'm quickly gonna jump to the Azure portal. So it should be visible, the Azure portal. So you see that I have an Azure Compute Gallery here. So to create a new application definition, you see it's already here now, but you can just go here to the add button, and then you have the two options. So in the past, you only had the image definition, but now you also have an application definition. And then you can go through the wizard. Also, an important thing, if you publish it with an image, you have the option to automatically have it replicated to a different region. Basically, if you want to use it in multiple regions, don't do it straight away is my recommendation, basically, because your deployment will take longer. So if you, for example, also want to use an image into regions, then first have the deployment succeed in one region and afterwards replicate it. Why do I say? Because if you do it with one region first, your deployment in your primary region will already have succeeded, and you can already start building machines or applications in your first region. You don't have to wait for the replication to have ended to your second region. So basically, you can save time if you don't replicate at once, of course. So I'm quickly first going to show the storage account first. Just give me a second. This one. So as I told you, as well as you can see, there might be security people in your company who will complain about it because it's enabled here, the blob public access. But also if we go here to configuration, you will see that it's enabled, but also the storage account keys have been enabled on this storage account. If you put it on disabled and you try to use a SAS token, for example, to create the application version, because you can use that as well, it won't work anymore. So the script will go in failed state immediately. So remember that if you want to use it, you have to put the storage account key on enabled, otherwise it won't work. Also consider if you are using so private endpoints, for example. I have a private endpoint at the moment on here. It will work. Just remember, if you have security basically asking you why the storage account has been enabled for public access, that it's needed for this. So it might be that for that reason, VM applications won't be suitable for your company, of course. And I'm quickly gonna see if I have my script here for the VM for the. Just give me a second. Yep, here it is. So basically, what you can do is you can use a script that will get the SAS token from your storage account. And if you do it like this, you will just have to say here that the permissions is read, write, and delete on the container itself. So if you do it like this, you don't have to generate the SAS token, of course, yourself. You can still generate it yourself, of course. How can we do that? You might ask. Well, let me just take the Storage Explorer for a second. So you see that I have 3 executables here for Notepad++. If you want to generate a SAS token yourself, if you don't want to use a PowerShell script for that, you can simply go here and generate it and just select the permissions that you want and click on create. Just remember, you will get this window, for example. If you close it, you won't see the data itself anymore. So remember to copy it out of here. And then you can basically put the URL and the query string behind each other in the script as location where it needs to find the installer, and it will also work like that. But if you generate the SAS link through PowerShell, basically it will deliver you the exact same thing. So those are basically the 3 options to retrieve the link. So for your application, quickly gonna jump back here because if I'm not mistaken, I need to be here. Yep. So here you see you can create your application through PowerShell. So basically, it's the application definition that you create, and then you create your version. As you see, the version here that I've mentioned also before, put it on the exact same version as your application itself. It's much easier in the Azure Compute Gallery to identify which version of Notepad++, for example, is being installed. If you only use one, then everybody can see at the numbers at the version which one it is exactly. So how do we basically deploy it? Let me just enter in my variables, and then basically we run this command. If all goes well, I hope so, it will start creating in the Azure Compute Gallery a new version. So basically go to definitions, to Notepad++, and then, yep, it's already doing it. So you can see now I already have a version 8.4.7 and it succeeded. So right now it's creating the latest one. And if you do it like this, basically, everybody can easily see which version of Notepad that you are creating like this. It's much more easier if you do it like this, because otherwise you have to click on the version itself and then go into the install script to check which one it is. So if you do it like if you just put in the version in there like this, it's much easier. It does take a while to install. That's the downside of it. So I will let it run for a couple of minutes and already show you how basically it looks like if it's installed on a VM itself. So I will go to one of my session hosts that is running at the moment. Normally it's already installed on this one. Yeah, indeed. So if you install an application version, what happens automatically, if the first time, of course, the VM app extension will be installed on your VM. So it's automatically, as soon as you add the application, it will install. If you go to the VM applications blade here, you will see that the Notepad++ is installed, and it's version 8.4.7. It was successful. Now, if you want to uninstall it, you just need to click the uninstall button here, and then don't forget to click on save, because otherwise nothing will happen. So that's really important. I've seen people uninstalling it and they forgot to click on save. So that's the most important thing to do. Just let me already log on to this one, because I'm gonna install on this one, and I just want to show you how it looks like. And this is going real slow. Okay, for a moment I thought my bastion wasn't there anymore, but it is. It should work. The VM will be a little bit slow because it's not a big size, so apologies for the delay on that. But you will see that there's no Notepad++ on this one yet. If it loads, of course, it would be nice. It's coming. That happens when you take a B series. So if we check on the VM and see, so there's no Notepad++ on here at the moment. So let me just quickly see if the application already is installed. And it is, so the command is successfully, as you can see. So basically now, if we go to the virtual machine blade again, we go to the extensions. You see there's no extension on here yet for the VM application. So how can I add it? Simply go here to add application. You will see this screen now. You can select your application that you want to add, of course, and then it will be automatically here on the version. It will be the latest. So basically the version that I just deployed, but you're also able to choose another version here. So right now I will choose the 8.4.8 version that I did. And now you see you have the save button. So don't forget to click on save, of course. And here also click on save because otherwise it won't work. And now it has been deployed. So have to click on save 2 times. Don't forget it. And now we just have to wait a moment because it takes a while before the application, of course, is there, because right now the installer is running in the background of this machine. So in a moment, normally we will see the other version of Notepad++ appearing here. As I said, if you have 20 session hosts, for example, that you need to do it on, you prefer a method is, of course, to script it, then it's much more easier. So now you see the Notepad++ is here and it's starting. So basically now we've installed Notepad++ through the VM application. And if we go now to the extensions, you see that the app extension also is here. So it's installed automatically when you install the application. And right now to show it, I will also uninstall it again. And now you see after you click on uninstall, don't forget the save button. And basically now what happens in the background of on the VM itself, the uninstall script will run. I will close this, and now in a moment it will be gone from the VM. Just have to give it a little bit more time, of course, to uninstall it. That's basically the way that you can install and uninstall the VM applications on the device itself. So what else is there to say about this? Well, of course, the most important question that there is, if you can use them in combination with AVD, of course. Well, in my opinion, you can, but then you will have to automate it, in my opinion, by using the PowerShell install script, because if you have a large environment, then you don't want to go and install it one by one on all the machines. Also, if you want to use it, you have to think about the amount of applications that you need, of course, on your machines, because you have to think about the limitation of 5 applications on each of the VMs. So if you have more applications than that, then you need to think about having to combine them with another delivery method, as we already talked about, MSX attach, Intune, a golden image. Then you have to consider, is the VM applications the right solution, of course, for you. And yeah, also if your security team, if they don't like, of course, for the storage accounts to be that open, which I can totally understand, of course, then it's also not an option, of course, to use. If they don't like that, then basically the idea of VM applications is off the table straight away. And basically, I'm not sure, John, how much time I got, because I'm already at the end of the session, actually. So
Yeah, well, how much? Yeah, take what you need. I think Sameer is waiting in the wings. So yeah.
Okay. Well, basically, that's a lot. Is the last slide of the session, the Q&A, basically. So if there are any questions of anybody, I'm free to answer them.
Cool. So I can't see any questions in the chat at the minute, Johan, but no, really appreciate that. Thank you for taking us through that. It's really informative there. So yeah, I guess if anybody's got any questions, either come off mute now or drop them in the chat. But are you sticking around with us, Johan?
Normally, because I'm interested in Azure Stack HCI, so I'll be here for I think a couple of extra minutes. Yeah.
There you are, if you.
Of course, I will. I hope that it was interesting for you people, the VM applications.
No, absolutely. Yeah, brilliant. Richard, did you have a question there?
Yeah, if that's all right. I'm really sorry. I've been running in and out of the room doing ironing and stuff like that. So apologies if you've caught if you've covered this already.
No problem.
No, first of all, thank you ever so much for the talk. I was curious because a lot of what your talk was precautionaries about, watch out for doing this, watch out for doing this, you need to do this. Can I ask, what are the main advantages of this method versus, as you say, like Intune? Apologies, I caught essentially the negatives, but I wasn't so clear on the positives from your perspective. So, and I say apologies if you've already covered this.
No, because for me, a plus point, of course, is that you can basically script the entire thing. So if your session hosts are being deployed by either an ARM template, or if it's Terraform or Bicep or whatever scripting language that you're using, you can basically have a PowerShell entry in your pipeline, and then you can add them in there, of course, because as I said, if you have a large environment, you're not going to install it one by one through the Azure portal on the VM itself. So I think that's a big plus for the VM applications, that you can do it like that, also to create a new version. If you have the script, basically it's not much work to update your applications, and then just run the remove in your pipeline and install the application again. So it's a nice way of doing it. Is it the best way? There are other ways, of course, also to do it. So yeah, it's to like I said, it will depend on the type of customer, of course, the type of applications that they have, because yeah, it's limited. So if an application requires a reboot, it won't work. So yeah, it also the application version that I've not seen many applications that are larger than 1 gigabyte, to be honest, for the installer. So so yeah, it has is advantages also that you can, of course, use the Azure Compute Gallery to replicate into a different region. So if you have multiple regions and you need to install them, then it's a great fit, in my opinion. Especially if you're already using the gallery for your images, then you don't need a new gallery. Then you can just reuse the existing one.
Nice. Thank you ever so much. Thank you.
No worries.
Cool. Well, thank you so much, Johan. Really, well, for your time and obviously the session. It was great. Yeah, if everybody wants to show their sign of appreciation in the virtual
My pleasure.
emojis, or come off mute and give a round of applause, of course. Thanks a lot,
It
Johan.
feels slightly awkward to just like be a singular person clapping. So
Yeah, exactly. That's right. That's right.
Thanks, Johan.
Cool.
Really
No.
appreciate that.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
No, not at all. No, pleasure to have you here, Johan. So fantastic. Okay, well, we shall move swiftly on because Sameer is waiting in the wings, and I know it's pretty late with Sameer at the moment. So firstly, thank you for joining us, Sameer, and thanks for staying up so late to give us a session.
Oh, not a problem at all. It's an honor to be here, really.
No, great to have you
Be
here.
able to meet you guys.
Yeah, we're a small, friendly bunch, hopefully, so we won't bite much.
I hope so. Awesome.
Let us know.
Should we just jump straight into it then?
Go for it. Yeah, the floor is yours.
Okay, let me start with sharing my screen.
Got you. Brilliant.
Okay, you see the slides?
Yep, got them.
Cool. So I will basically start by introducing myself. So I won't take a lot of time here in this slide because you're not here to hear my autobiography, but you're here to talk about Azure Stack HCI. So I am a hybrid cloud consultant at Topcore. I work with Azure stuff and data, on-prem stuff, and I also work with the technologies that binds them together, right? So Azure Arc. All these technologies are very well. Some of them are new, some of them are old, but one thing for sure is that all of those are gaining a lot of traction nowadays, especially hybrid cloud, especially with all the new exciting enhancements coming out with Azure Arc. Day in and day out, they're working on Azure Arc and building the whole hybrid cloud story. And there's a lot of investment. There's a lot of attention that Microsoft is, particularly Microsoft is giving in the space of hybrid cloud. And so I'm very excited to walk you guys through the agenda today. Now the session is about Azure Stack HCI. The title says Azure Stack HCI overview, but I wouldn't start with the first slide with the architecture of Azure Stack HCI and then give you use cases and that's that. So instead, what I want to do is I want to run you through the journey. I want to run you through the need, the requirement as to why would anyone want to adopt a hybrid cloud strategy in their data center or in their IT infrastructure, and what makes up Azure Stack HCI, what makes up HCI, what makes up Azure Stack, right? So Azure Stack is basically a combination of two things, Azure Stack and HCI. So I want to cover both of them before we actually start talking about Azure Stack HCI. And then we'll talk, of course, we'll go into little more details technically about Azure Stack HCI and then how it is licensed and how do you buy the Azure Stack HCI, right? So let me start with the good old business justifications for this as to why would you want to go for an Azure Stack HCI implementation in your data center. So you don't need me to tell you that we are in the age of digital transformation today, right? And as part of it, every organization is rethinking their IT strategy. They're rethinking how they engage with their customers, vendors, or even their employees for that matter. Now, you know that there's a rise in microservices. You know there's a rise in platform as a service utilization or software as a service utilization services nowadays, right? So new demands are coming from the developers. So there is also this approach of going cloud first, cloud native applications nowadays, right? So this constitutes different requirements sometimes, right? Because you would want to go for maybe AKS, you may want to go for Azure DevOps, you may want to incorporate Azure Monitor in your application infrastructure. Or you might want to, configure some Azure App Services, Azure Functions, right? So all these good things you don't want to miss out on, basically, right? So these are new kinds of demands that are coming from the developers. And also us as users, we have been, lately we have been very pampered with low latency applications or high performant applications. So we want all the applications to be, to be performant and available to us all the time. We cannot tolerate a downtime of even, say, 10 minutes or 5 minutes. 10 minutes is way too much. 5 minutes, we cannot tolerate the downtime of applications. Not to mention that this is potentially a loss of possibly thousands or millions of rupees, not rupees, well, I'm Indian, so rupees for me, but dollars or euros, whatever. So that is a potential loss that we want to control, or we want to eliminate ideally, right? And as part of this transformation, every corner of the business is being impacted. So it is not only about the IT business, basically, as I like to call it. So if you really think about it, right, every business today, if you think of finance, you think of banking, think of insurance, or even think of healthcare system or anything, even retail organizations. These may be their core verticals, it may be their core functions. Now, Walmart could be a retail company, but it is also an IT company if you think about it, because all of their IT, all of their retail is dependent on their IT, right? So every company, every organization today is in a way an IT organization, right? So that is why you have to be very vigilant about getting, familiar with all these new technologies and what are the all good enhancements, or what are these services that are being offered to you by either public clouds or, private clouds, or even the hybrid cloud nowadays. Now, as you, incorporate more and more more of these new technologies in your app structure or in your IT data centers, they are becoming more complex, so to say, right? So because now if you are running some part of your application on-prem, you're running some part of your application on public cloud. Now you may also be running monitoring in another cloud. You may be running backup in another cloud, or you could be. So your IT strategy could be anywhere from completely on-prem to completely on public cloud to completely a multi-cloud diverse kind of infrastructure you may have, right? So your IT environments are becoming more complex, especially integrating between these different parts of your application is becoming more complex. Now, the last thing is all of these challenges must be resolved with limited human interaction. Now, why is that? No, I don't mean we want to eliminate humans from technology, not at all. But at the same time, having said that, we want to limit how much interference or how much disturbance human error can cause in the system, right? So we want all our systems to be performant. We want all of them to be efficient, and we want all of them to be prone to errors. Immune to errors, right? So we don't want them to, we don't want a system admin to be able to go and change some passwords or mess up some settings, and then the whole application is down. Right? This is definitely not what we want. We want to incorporate as much automation in the system as we can. So,
Sameer,
sure.
Sameer, sorry to chime in. Are you moving the slides forward, or are you still on the first slide?
I'm on the digital transformation one. What do you see on the slide?
Right. Yeah, I don't think your slides are moving. I was gonna wait. I thought you were. Yeah.
Oh,
I don't know if you
okay.
want to try and reshare your slides. I'm not sure if they're moving. I thought it was just me for a while, but it looks like others are having the same problem.
Okay.
That's better. That's better. We can see your second slide into digital transformation. All right, cool. Let us know when you change again, and I'll let you know if it's working or not.
Okay, let me just quickly test that once more. No, it looks like I have to click on it individually. Well,
we can see
not
we can
good.
see slide 2 now.
What I'll do is I was trying to share my window, but I'll just share my whole screen then.
Okay.
Let's see if that works. Right. Now I just change the slide. I'm changing the slides.
Yeah, that's working good. Brill.
Right.
Sorry,
Better?
Sameer.
Okay. Not a
That's
problem.
good.
Thanks for the heads up. Cool. So yeah, so since you did not get the chance to, well, I've talked through all of this slide anyway, but this is what I was saying, that in a nutshell, that there are new requirements and demands coming from developers, users, and even existing workloads, right? If you want to repatriate your workloads, or if you want to upgrade or update, the whole part, whole of your application or some parts of your application, right? So all of these new demands are coming in. All the every corner of the business is being impacted because everything at the end of the day runs on IT. Your core business could be anything, could be medical, insurance, finance, banking, anything, right? But it runs in the IT on IT in the background. And as we are going more diverse, and we are trying to incorporate more and more technologies into our applications, into our data centers, these things are becoming a little more complex nowadays. And all of these challenges must be resolved with human interaction, with limited human interaction, so that there is more performance and less chance for errors. Now, of course, as we are going through the digital transformation, this is what we are going through, right? We are going through, this is essentially the continuation of my last slide. IT is increasingly playing a more strategic role within the business, right? So think about it now. IT, if you think of an IT guy or think of an IT department, does a basement come to your mind? Yeah. When you think of an IT guy, does a nerd with big glasses come to your mind? Yes, of course. But that is not the case anymore, fortunately. IT is playing more and more, key business in any business. Key role in any business today. Again, as we are moving towards this more high performant, highly available infrastructure, there are more and more services, there are more and more applications that are being incorporated, right? So in order to be, at the top of your business, essentially, you want to utilize more and more applications. Now, VMs, databases, containers, and nowadays serverless computing. These are all the main core, most common components that go into any organization's IT business strategies today, but these are not the only ones, right? So this is just for the high level, the most common resources that are being used. And then there are applications being built on God knows how many programming languages out there, right? So you want to be able to run all of them seamlessly while also using your existing technologies. Again, we already discussed about the diverse infrastructure, right? So data centers is not the only place where you would want to store your data now. You're going hyperscalers. Hyperscalers are public clouds. And there's a lot of, so think of especially for organizations that deal with retail or insurance or banking or hospitals, which have multiple branch offices for them, right? So they may have one headquarter, and then again, think of Walmart or 7-Eleven, anything. There's a store at every corner of the street, right? So where does all this data go? So are all of these branch offices as high tech as your core data center? Definitely not. But again, if you think about it, this is where the business is being generated for all these organizations. For Walmart, the business is coming from the branch offices, right? That their data is generating at the branch offices. So there is an ID survey that I don't remember the exact numbers, but the estimate is like over 70 or 75% of the data in the next few years is going to be generated from the edge locations, right? So think of retail, think of mining and oiling, rigs somewhere out in the ocean, or think of submarine that is collecting data. So this is where the data is going to come from. and not always you can process it right then and there, or not always you can send it back to a public cloud because you simply may not have the connectivity. Where will a submarine get internet connection to connect to Azure, right? It won't. So regardless, this is where data is being generated. So you may want to process the data right there at the edge, and then maybe send the data for archive purposes, for storage purposes to the public cloud later. Again, a lot of companies are also thinking of going multi-cloud. Now there are, let's say, varying opinions about going multi-cloud because a lot of people think that sticking with one particular cloud will help, integrate all your services and systems together much better than going, some in GCP, some in Azure, some in AWS. Now, there may be some truth to that, but a lot of people also think that you don't want to be locked into one particular ecosystem, right? So you may want, if for whatever reason AWS is not suiting your business, then you should have the flexibility, or you should have the path to migrate to Microsoft Azure, right? So you don't want to be locked into one particular ecosystem. So that's why a lot of companies are also moving towards multi-cloud. That is why hybrid also comes into the picture. And I hope you agree when I say that cloud is not a place anymore, right? So cloud is an operating model, so to say, right? It is a concept, because we've been in the past, say, inception of AWS was when 2000 something. And since then, for the last 10 years, we have been spoiled with the cloud computing model. We have been, spoiled with the cloud operating model. We try to offload our work to somebody else. We don't want to deal with all, nitty-gritties or all the troubleshooting of hardware. We don't want to get into updating our softwares every 6 months and so on, right? We want to offload all of that to a public cloud, but we want to utilize all the good things that the service, the cloud is providing to us. Now you get this in public clouds, but what if you are not able to go to public cloud? Now you may have to, you may be willingly staying on-prem, or there may be some reasons that are, making you stay on-prem, but that does not mean that now, so gone are the days when you're thinking, okay, if you're modernizing, then you're going to public cloud. And if you're not going to public cloud, you're not modernizing. If you're running something on data centers, then it is bound to be rusty. It is bound to be, there's going to be cobwebs everywhere on your applications, and the performance is going to be very, very slow just because it is on data center, your own data center, right? That is not the case anymore. There are some offers. Again, we'll talk about them in more details, but there are some services that will help you utilize the same cloud operating model on-prem. Regardless of where your infrastructure is, the cloud operating model will come to you. So if you cannot go to the cloud will come to you, right? So the cloud is not the place. It is an operating model, and that is the model that we want to embrace, because that gives us flexibility, that gives us credibility, that gives us security, that gives us ease of management, that gives us scalability, right? High performance and high availability. All of these things are cloud is giving us, and we don't want to miss out wherever we are. If my infrastructure, my VM is not on cloud, I don't care. I still want to use cloud operating model. Right? So cloud is not a place anymore. It is an operating model. So how do you go about doing this, right? So there are two parts: modernization and transformation. Modernization is, so this is in reference of staying on-prem, right? So if you have your infrastructure staying on-prem for whatever reasons, again, there might be some reasons. We will talk about them in brief in upcoming slides. But for now, let's think, okay, I have some infrastructure that has to be on-prem. But again, that does not mean that it has to be old and rusty. You should be able to looking to refresh your aging infrastructure to HCI. So what do I mean by aging infrastructure, and what do I mean by HCI? I have a slide about that later. So, but for a very quick reference, aging infrastructure is your 3-tier, classic 3-tier data center, and HCI basically stands for hyperconverged infrastructure. We'll talk about that, what that means. Then you want to migrate existing Hyper-V deployments. So if you have the flexibility to move to cloud, please do so. I am a hybrid cloud consultant. Now it is my job, so to say, to convince people to go hybrid instead of going public cloud entirely. But having said that, I am not the one to stop you from going public cloud, provided that your infrastructure or your workload is suitable for cloud. If it is suitable, if it's well architected, then please go ahead and put it on the cloud. But if it is not, keep it on your on your own data center. Now, while we are modernizing, we again don't want to reinvent the wheel, or we don't want to start learning some crazy things just to be able to support our on-prem infrastructure. We want to keep using our familiar management tools. Now, these tools may differ depending on what ecosystem you come from, right? So for VMware, there are different tools. For Microsoft, there are different tools. But we want to keep using those management tools and keep, retain our existing skill set essentially. Now, expand and accelerate consolidation. Again, this is part of HCI. Consolidation is where you want to consolidate not only your infrastructure, but also your software, right? So you want to consolidate your different control systems. You want to have a single pane of glass. So you want to have minimum failure points. You don't want a lot of moving parts in your machine, because moving parts is what usually fails first, right? So you want to consolidate all of your infrastructure while improving reliability and performance again, right? So this all ties back into the cloud operating model. Reliable cloud is reliable and cloud is performant. Well, of course, given that it is well architected again, but let's say it is. So cloud will generally provide you more reliability and performance compared to something on-prem. So how do we achieve this? How do we transform our data centers? So first, leverage Azure Hybrid by design. So when I say hybrid by design, Azure Stack HCI is hybrid by design. So what that means is it is not fit with your on-prem infrastructure with nuts and bolts. It is made that way, right? So it glues with it, it integrates with it perfectly. You wouldn't even believe. So if unfortunately I don't have a demo today, but if you go to Azure an Arc-enabled virtual machine, and you go to the public cloud, I mean Azure portal, public Azure portal, open up that Arc-enabled virtual machine, which is sitting on your data center, and then open up side by side a virtual machine that is locally spun up in Azure, and then try and then see the difference or see the similarities, right? It is almost identical. So that is what we mean by hybrid by design. It is not just like temporarily fixed somehow. It is actually a hybrid first class resource in Azure Cloud. Now, containers, I don't need to talk about containers and Kubernetes because it's the exploding technology of today. So we are going for more and more microservice oriented architecture. We are going towards containers and Kubernetes. Now, for Azure, there is AKS, Azure Kubernetes Service. Now you can also use it entirely on public cloud, but again, you can also bring that down to your private cloud as well. Now that is not the scope of this discussion today, maybe some other time, but that is entirely possible. Okay, so what is hybrid cloud? Again, I understand I haven't been talking about Azure Stack HCI yet, but I promise we are getting there. We are very close. I hope, I'm praying somebody gets this reference. At least one person gets the reference of this this joke. So what is hybrid cloud? Is it a private cloud? Is it a public cloud? What is it, right? And what makes up a hybrid cloud? So if you look at Microsoft's or any Azure consultants story up until 5 years ago, let's say 4 or 5 years ago, you would hear a lot that everybody says that the cloud is the answer to everything. But if you really think about it, is it? is it really the answer to everything? Well, spoiler alert, it is not. Because especially for the organizations that have data compliance issues, data sovereignty issues, or data gravity constraints or law of the land, simply there are a lot of laws that require the citizens of a country to not leave the boundary of the country, right? So you cannot leave the data. I mean, you cannot send the data of a citizen outside of the legal boundaries of that company, right? Sorry, that country. So there could be a variety of reasons where we have quickly realized, okay, this cloud story sounds awesome, but I don't think I can move everything to cloud. So what is this private cloud or hybrid cloud anyway? So when somebody asks you, I need you to explain the concept of the hybrid cloud in simple terms. What is hybrid cloud? Is hybrid cloud a technology you don't understand combined with another one? Well, it doesn't have to be. A private cloud, a hybrid cloud, is it a private cloud or is it a public cloud? Well, yes, it is both. Because by its simple definition, right, if you go with hybrid, if anything is hybrid, you know, it has the qualities of both. So now when a hybrid cloud, when you think of hybrid cloud, it has the advantages of both public cloud as well as private cloud. So then what are the advantages of public cloud? I think they're pretty self-explanatory, and I think we have talked about it plenty so far, but just to give you a quick recap again. So it is scalable, it is reliable, it is highly performant, it is distributable, right? So you can distribute where you host your workloads depending on where your user base is. It is secure nowadays, right? So there gone are the days again where you think that the hosting data on public cloud is not safe. It's not the case that at all. So all these good things come with public clouds. What are the advantages of private cloud again? So they are that you are in control of your data. There is absolute data sovereignty. There's absolute data gravity, right? So you have your data center. So preferably you have your data next to your users. Well, not exactly next to them, but in the vicinity where they have very limited latency to accessing that data, right? So both of these things come together in a hybrid cloud. So by definition, a hybrid cloud is when you put the data of your users or your application on your premise, but still use public services, public cloud services to operate on data, or to analyze that data, to store that data, to monitor that data, to back up that data, right? You can still utilize all the good services that a public cloud provides. How? Well, we'll take a look at that. Okay, so I told you that Azure Stack HCI is a combination of two major technologies, Azure Arc and plus HCI. So very quickly talk about what HCI is. Again, like I said, it stands for Hyperconverged Infrastructure. So this is what I was saying when I said aging infrastructure. So on the left, you say there's a traditional 3-tier architecture, which has complex and separate silos. So what are these silos? First is virtualization, where all your servers are. Then you have external storage, and then you have networking hardware, right? So these things are separate to each other and they are externally connected via cables, right? So what are the disadvantages of this? Now, advantages, of course, that it is, since it is independent, you can independently scale out, you can independently replace any faulty hardware. But what are the disadvantages? Left, should you run into a problem, where would you go, right? So if your application is not performing well, let's say, so by your servers you purchased from Dell, your storage is from, I don't know, VMware, and then you have a network that is Cisco. So where do you go? How do you identify where the problem is originating? So there would be a lot of war room discussions going on and a lot of hand pointing and finger pointings towards each other. So that is the problem that this 3-tiered infrastructure today has. Not to mention that it is more expensive to to maintain, because the more hardware, there will be more heating, so cooling requirements. Let's say then you would have to have more space that takes up more physical area, so you'll have to go for a bigger space, so that costs you more rent. that adds to your IT budget. And like again, so this is, I'm not even talking about all that stuff, security and all those good things, right? So these are the challenges that they're being presented today with traditional 3-tier infrastructure. So why we want to go for HCI is, in HCI, what we do is basically we combine these silos into one device, let's say, or into one hardware server. So when you go for HCI, you have one single rack server or whatever server that you purchase. It has its own local storage and it has network capabilities, SDN inside built in as well. So what that does is, now instead of having 15 servers, 20 external storage arrays, and 5 different Cisco networks, now you have dramatically decreased your infrastructure footprint, right? So now you only have, let's say, 4 Azure Stack HCI nodes, which are doing equivalently, just the same amount of work as your other infrastructure would do, isolated infrastructure, right? So you have dramatically saved the space, you have dramatically saved the maintenance cost, you have dramatically saved the troubleshooting, because all this infrastructure, a CI node come from a single node, a single vendor, you know where to go to, right? So if you purchase it from Dell, you contact Dell for everything. You contact Dell for server, storage, and network. If you purchase it from, let's say, HPE, then you contact HPE for server, storage, network, all of these things. That is dramatically decreasing your time to resolution and your time, you can recover from an error considerably quickly, right? So that's the hardware part of the HCI. Now this is the software part, Azure Arc. Azure Arc, I don't think there might be anyone in the audience today that have never heard of Azure Arc, because Microsoft is going very heavy on Azure Arc nowadays. Just a quick recap or a quick summary of what Azure Arc is essentially, I like to think of it as a glue that sticks non-Azure resources to Azure. Now, this includes projecting non-Azure resources into Azure, as well as bringing Azure resources to non-Azure, Azure services to non-Azure resources as well. Right. So if you look at this diagram here, at the bottom, you see there's Azure Stack HCI. Now your infra or your resource could be running everywhere, right? It could be running on the Microsoft virtualization platform. It could be running on VMware. It could be even running on any other different cloud altogether, right? Could be running on AWS or even GCP. It does not matter at all. What matters is that you can still project them into your Azure public portal. So if you look at this line here, it says Azure Arc enabled infrastructure onboarding, right? When I say Azure Arc enabled, what that essentially means is that you have that Azure Arc software installed on these resources, and then you are connecting back to your Azure portal. Similarly, you can also, using Azure Arc, you can also bring down Azure services, right? Think of data services, app services, Azure Monitor, AKS, SQL managed instance, right? All of these things, Azure Site Recovery, well, it has its own agent, but you can still bring them down using Azure Arc, because once you projected your resource into Azure, it is treated as a first-class resource, right? So there is not a lot of discrimination that goes on into Azure when it comes to an Arc-enabled server, let's say, or a native server. It treats it both. It treats both the same way. You can work with both in PowerShell. You can use CLI. You can use all the traditional tools that you use for your native Azure resources. You can still use them on your Azure Arc resources as well. And of course, on top of this, you have unified operations management, compliance, and security. So again, since now this non-Azure resource is essentially a part of Azure, you can apply all of your compliance policies, group policies, government management, tagging, budgeting, all of these things you can apply on your on-premise infrastructure as well. So that is huge, right? If you think about it, you don't have to keep switching between GCP for something, AWS for something, and then Azure for something. Oh, but then you remember, oh wait, this machine is not in Azure. This machine is on my prem. on my premise, right? You don't have to do that anymore. Just get everything into Azure portal and work from there, right? So you have control of all of your resources from a single pane of glass. Now, let's start inching more towards Azure, Microsoft Azure Stack in general. Now we are kind of equipped with all the knowledge or the background to understand what Azure Stack HCI in particular is. Now, this is the whole Azure Stack portfolio. Microsoft offers 3 different products under its hybrid category. There's Azure Stack Hub, Azure Stack HCI, and then Azure Stack Edge. I won't spend a lot of time on Hub and Edge for, obvious reasons, but I'll give you a very quick introduction to both of them. So Azure Stack Hub is essentially when you want to use Azure model as it is on your premise, right? So you want to use, so when you order Azure Stack Hub appliance, it is just essentially, it is just another Azure, but in your data center, not in Microsoft's, right? So you have the same SKUs, you have the same services, well, most of them, not all of them. You have most of the same services on Azure Stack Hub, exactly as you would consume on Azure public portal, right? So you even have your own public portal, own portal that looks exactly like Azure public portal when you order Azure Stack Hub. Now, Azure Stack Edge, again, I won't, if it doesn't make sense to you right now, that's all right. It's not the point of discussion today. Azure Stack Edge is it's kind of more specific. It is more user, particular driven for a particular use case, such as if you want to run something GPU heavy on the edge device, on the edge location, or if you want to process some machine learning on the edge locations and then send the data back to Azure. That is where you go for Azure Stack Edge. Now, Azure Stack Edge is you can order it directly from the Azure portal, while Azure Stack Hub and Azure Stack HCI you will order through a vendor. Now, there are a lot of vendors that are partnered with Microsoft that give you the hardware, but Azure Stack Edge is its own device. Now, actually, it is moving. Microsoft is moving away from Azure Stack Edge. And they are going more towards Azure Stack HCI first-party solution that they have very recently announced at Ignite, actually. So I think it's called HCI Pro and HCI Pro 2, I think. But yeah, so Azure Stack Edge and Azure Stack Hub are also part of the hybrid strategy. But if it's not making a lot of sense to you right now, that's okay. We will be focusing more on Azure Stack HCI. So this is what the architecture looks like. It's very simple, as you can say, as you go from the bottom. Now, this is the validated partner hardware, right? I just told you this is that if you want to buy Azure Stack HCI, you have to buy it from a vendor. Well, again, you can buy it from Microsoft, but in any case, you'd most likely be for a production use case, you'd most likely be buying it from a validated partner. Now, there's a whole list of partners that have validated their hardware for running Azure Stack HCI. So you will essentially go contact them or contact Microsoft, and they will put you in contact with the concerned party. So once you've got the hardware, depending on what kind of offering that you've chosen. So when I say what kind of, there are 2 things. There is integrated systems and there are also validated systems. So for integrated systems, if you order the integrated hardware, that essentially comes with everything. So it comes with Azure Stack HCI OS on installed by default. Now, I have a lot of people surprised when they actually find out what Azure Stack HCI actually is. What is it? It is just an operating system, right? Just an operating system, air quotes. Because up until this point, for the people who don't know anything about Azure Stack HCI, they think, well, okay, this looks well and good, but what does Azure Stack HCI actually look like? What is it? Fundamentally, what is it? Well, the answer is very simple. It is just an operating system, but it's not just an ordinary operating system. It is purpose-built operating system. It is purpose-built for running on HCI. It is purpose-built for running hybrid, connecting to hybrid services. Now, there is Windows Server may come to some of your minds. Windows Server operating system will also connect with hybrid and is also able to virtualize using Hyper-V. But there are subtle differences between Azure Stack HCI operating system and Windows Server operating system. I don't think I have that slide here, but there are a lot of differences. Essentially, that when and where you may want to go for HCI, and when and where you want to keep using Windows Server. So Azure Stack HCI, like Windows Server, also runs on the three main components: Hyper-V, which is virtualization, S2D, which is storage, and SDN, which is networking. Right. So this is where the excuse me, this is where the HCI piece of the story comes into picture, right? This is the HCI appliance. When you order a hardware, it is an HCI hardware. So it has storage, compute, and networking capabilities built into it. And once you install Azure Stack HCI operating system on it, you can go either the traditional Windows Server using your traditional licensing, or you can go with Linux servers, or you can also use your node as a Kubernetes node. So you can install Azure Kubernetes service on top of that node directly on Azure Stack HCI operating system and use it for hosting your applications on AKS like that. So all of this is controlled and managed using Windows Admin Center user interface. So if you're not familiar with, I don't think there's anyone who works in Microsoft that doesn't know what Windows Admin Center is. But if there is, Windows Admin Center is essentially the ad hoc tool that Microsoft is pushing to manage all aspects of your operating system into one, single pane of glass. Let's see, you've got certificates here, you've got hybrid services coming up here, you've got Azure Arc settings up here, you've got a lot of things here. So services, processes, all these things are all these tools that we use, individually, or we used to use individually, are now all baked into Windows Admin Center. Now you can connect remotely to Azure services, right? So if you connect, so as soon as you install Azure Stack HCI and you create a cluster, so you have to create the cluster. You have to register the cluster to Azure, to the Azure portal, right? So once you've registered that portal into Azure portal, that cluster into Azure portal, that is where you get to use all the goodness of public Azure services. So you can connect remotely to Azure services over internet, right? So if you have express route, and if you have like any data privacy, isolation, requirements, you can go your VPN and all through all the, routine usual Azure networking, but you can also go through. So all of this and usually can also go through internet. So you can connect very easily and securely to all the Azure services. So fundamentally what Azure Stack HCI is again, Hyper-V, S2D, and SDN. Now there is also a native feature in Azure Stack HCI that is stretch clustering. Using S2D, that is. Now you can also do stretch clustering in Windows operating system using storage replica, but this is using S2D at the background, right? What this essentially means is you can have, two sites, a primary site and a secondary site. You can have them on active or active passive, the usual stuff, right? So if your active goes down, then you will have a copy automatically spun up in the passive data center, right? So the usual high availability thing that is already baked into Azure Stack HCI, so it comes at no additional extra cost. Now it is hybrid by design. Again, we have talked about this plenty, that it has native integration and it is a first-class resource. So what I mean by that is once you register your Azure Stack HCI cluster to Azure, it appears in the portal as if it was a native Azure resource. So it has all the native Azure constructs, all the ARM features applicable to this cluster that is actually not Azure, but still somehow Azure, right? So it's connected to Azure. This is again familiar management and operations. You as being an admin Windows guy, you are familiar with Windows Admin Center. You may be familiar with System Center, right? SCCM, Endpoint Manager, SCOM, Operations Manager, or Service Manager, Orchestrator. All these System Center tools or PowerShell. Now, if you're a Windows admin, these things are your bread and butter. So you've been working with this for so long, over a lot of years now, that you don't want to just lose that competency anymore, right? So you want to keep using what you already have in your arsenal. So you don't have to start from zero. Even if you go with Azure Stack HCI today, you will hardly notice a difference, whether it is an HCI system or it is a traditional system, or even it's a public cloud. Again, you can continue to leverage third-party tools for monitoring security backup. If you have any external third-party tools that you're using on your traditional data centers, you can keep using them. There's nothing stopping you. So how do you license this thing? It's actually it comes as a fresh gust of air from Microsoft, because a lot of products from Microsoft, and essentially, especially the licensing is a nightmare. If you know Windows, if you have dealt with Windows Server licensing, you know what I mean, right? So Azure Stack HCI licensing, thankfully, is very easy. It is a monthly fee. It is billed to your subscription, and it is a simple $10 per physical core per month. And so this is a physical core per month. So depending on what size of machine you want, you will be, placing that order to your hardware vendor. Let's take Dell, for example. Then you will, put an order to Dell. Say I want X amount of physical cores. And so then you will be charged only for the physical cores. Now for integrated system, there are also other features that come with their offerings, such as you can turn off the physical cores that you are not using. So say, for example, you have 96 physical cores, but at the beginning, you are not really using all of them. You are only using 25. Then you can turn the rest of them off so that you don't have to get billed on the cores that you are not using. So this is where the integrated system versus, I think I have a slide at the end with very main features, differences between what an integrated system is and what a validated system is. But licensing is very quick and easy. It is just $10 per physical core per month. Now, if you want to add on to your workloads, now there are, on top of it, you will be installing or deploying your virtual machines, let's say Windows virtual machines. Now, there are two ways to license your virtual machines. Windows, you may have already have purchased a data center license, for example, or whatever Windows license that you already have. You can keep using that on your Azure Stack HCI Windows VMs as well. But you can also automatically essentially automatically license your VMs as they go live using Windows Server subscriptions. There's also a monthly service fee for that. That is 23.3 again per physical core per month. Now the total additional cost that you would be incurring per month is this plus this. If you go for this is optional again, right? If you already have a data center license, then this part you've already paid for. You don't have to pay for it again. Now, in the recent Ignite, Microsoft made a quite exciting news. That was, if you have Windows Data Center server license with software assurance, then this cost essentially goes down to null. That's instead of paying $33.3 per physical core per month, you are paying $0, because this cost comes under is covered under this agreement here. That's now running Azure Stack HCI is very cheap, much cheaper than it used to be, because this is a very recent announcement. There was a lot of feedback coming from customers that, okay, we want to try out Azure Stack HCI, but we already have made a lot of investment into Windows Server license, and we don't want to, pay for the Windows licenses again. So Microsoft took that into consideration, and they have come up with this amazing feature here, software data center plus software assurance. This also, now this is a slide for AKS on HCI. This also applies to AKS. AKS licensing is a little bit different. I won't go much deep into that for now. Now, this is what I was saying about integrated system versus validated system. So now let's say you've made up your mind and you want to buy an Azure Stack HCI hardware system. Now, where do you go? You've got two options. You go either for an integrated system, or then you go for a validated system. Now, this is in no way a comprehensive list of the features comparison. There are a bunch more. But these are just the more, the major ones. So integrated systems will continuously certify your rolling versions, right? So if you bought your system when Azure Stack was in 21H2, if it in the next cycle it will be 22H2, integrated systems will already have performed that validation that, okay, even with this version, this system works well. Then only they give you an option to upgrade. But that is not the case for validated systems, right? So it is only certified for a specific version. So I bought it for 22H2. That is what it will be valid for. All the further validation that I may have to do myself. And full stack validation, which includes not only operating system, but also everything underneath. That is the platform drivers, firmware. So this goes deep into the hardware level as well. So integrated system do all of this validation, while validated systems, not always. They have, now integrated systems have much more comprehensive list of things that they check. Okay, this works, this works, this works, this works. But validated systems don't have that. Now this is a big one again, Microsoft and OEM joint development. So all the big ones that provide you integrated systems, they actually have a support system or engineering collaboration system with Microsoft, right? So they are jointly developing the operating system. Well, I don't mean that there is some external interference going on into developing of Microsoft Azure Stack HCI, but there's definitely some feedback. There's some channel that prioritizes features that comes from all these integrated system, big hardware vendors. And this also ties into the one-stop cluster level support system here that I was saying, right? So in integrated system, they already have an agreement with Microsoft, whether whoever the ticket comes to. So say I'm a customer, I purchased an HP integrated system. I have a problem with, let's say, software storage, for example, right? Now I have the choice. I can either go to HP and raise a ticket, or I can go to Microsoft and raise a ticket. Now, depending on the nature of the error, the nature of the trouble, Microsoft and HP will interchange all the information within themselves. So you don't have to keep banging on different doors, right? So there is internal agreement between Microsoft and the OEM. Whether it is software issue, or a hardware issue, you can raise a request at either ends, and it will be interchanged between, depending on what the nature of the problem is. So that is again very powerful for the customer, because they don't have to waste a lot of their time just to find the right contact person, and then just to, after 5 minutes, 5 days of waiting, just to be pointed to the different vendor, right? That saves a lot of time. Again, so integrated lifecycle management, there's a lot of checks going on into integrated systems that make all the upgrading your hardware and software with a single click, while that is not the case for validated systems, right? So when you, so there again, ties back to full stack validation here. So if now there may be rolling versions, major versions coming from Microsoft, or there may be some firmware updates coming from the vendor. Right, so you don't have to worry about whether or not my system is going to still be compliant with these different versions of firmware or drivers, because that has already been tested for you. So you can just go ahead blindly, click apply this hardware, hardware update or software update, and you know that it is going to work. So you don't have to worry about all of that. Now trying out Azure Stack HCI is pretty easy. You don't have to go and buy the hardware right away. You can start with your own, have one server, have nested virtualization enabled on it, and then you can run your Azure Stack HCI OS, and then on top of it, you can run whatever all the features that Azure Stack HCI OS provides to you. So this is actually, you can download it from if you just look for, if you Google Azure Stack HCI free trial, then the first or second link should pop up. It is actually free for 60 days. Now, if you want to continue using that, then you have to buy it. Again, no physical hardware is required. You can run it with a VM, rather BFA VM, that is, if you want to run it properly on a VM with nested virtualization. Now, there are a couple of options there. You can start with the Jumpstart HCI box. That was again announced by Microsoft in Ignite. What this basically does is, it is very easy to, it's like a couple of clicks to deploy. What it basically does is it creates a virtual machine, a big virtual machine in your Azure subscription, enables nested virtualization into it, and install Azure Stack HCI on top of it. And then you can go about creating, deploying AKS or deploying your virtual machines. Or you can also use MS Labs. Now you can take your own server. And MS Labs was essentially, it was developed by Jaromir Kasper, who was my colleague at Dell. So if you have, he has a lot of amazing use cases or scenarios, as he calls it. So you can just go ahead and deploy right from a couple of clicks. If you go to MS Labs, there's a GitHub repository. I think it's called Microsoft/MS Labs, something like that. Should be pretty easy to find. So it is, again, so if you want to try it out, go ahead, give it a try. It is very easy to install, very easy to manage. And if you have been in a Windows admin center, Windows admin for whatever amount of time, then it is not a new technology to at all. Right? It is just a combination of a couple of old technologies just presented newly. That is all there is to it. If there's any questions, please do let me know. I hope I'm on time, did not drag it too much. So if you have any questions, please do let me know.
That was great. Thank you very much, Sameer. Really appreciate that. No, great session. I certainly learned a lot about HCI. So no, thank you so much. I can't see any comments in the chat, but look, I'll put your details up at the end of the session again, Sameer. So I'm guessing you're happy if somebody's got a couple of questions or whatnot, then.
Of course.
No, that's perfect. No, thanks a lot, Sameer. Great session. If everybody wants to come off mute or use the virtual emoticons.
Great session.
Thanks, everybody.
Sameer, I've got a quick
Brilliant.
question.
Yeah,
Sure.
no, absolutely.
Thank you. So I come from both, Microsoft and VMware background. So getting to know more about Azure HCI, Stack HCI is really good. And what I'm trying to relate is, this is an hypervisor, right? Similar to the ESXi that we have at VMware.
Part of it is hypervisor, yes. So a Hyper-V comes for the hypervisor, then you've got S2D for storage. So if you there is an equivalent in VMware for this as well. I don't know if you have heard of VxRail.
Mm-hmm.
That is the equivalent of Azure Stack HCI in the VMware world, right? So it has,
Okay.
I forget the terminology, but it has the similar. So it has ESXi at the base as virtualization. There's VMware storage system. I forget the name. And then there's also SDN, software defined networking, on top of
vSAN and
vSAN,
NSX.
right.
NSX.
vSAN, exactly.
Yeah. So the operating system, the Azure Stack HCI operating system, is nothing but the ESXi OS
Exactly.
at the VMware, I guess. Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
It's a vSAN ready node that we get with VxRail. So I think here it's S2D with the
Correct.
software defined networking. Cool.
Exactly. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Sameer. Thanks,
Yeah, no
John.
problem.
No, thanks for the question. Yeah, great question. So no, thank you very much again, Sameer. We shall move swiftly on. Everybody is welcome to stay and jump on the quiz. In fact, please do. There's not many of us in the room now, so more of a chance of,
Let me get
winning, I guess.
set up.
Can I need to head off? Sorry, mate.
Yeah,
Scott.
no worries.
Yeah, I need to head off. Thank
No
you very
worries,
much
Scott.
for tonight. Another great session. Look forward to seeing you guys in the next one.
No, thanks for coming, Scott. No, appreciate that. See you soon,
Cheers.
buddy. Ta-da, bye, bye. Oh, look at that. We've got some...
It looks a bit funky.
I'm joining as well, so...
I'm hoping I've not broken anything in the process of reskinning it. So we'll find out soon.
It's loading.
How many people do you think are using Quizzer on a daily basis?
I have no idea. I should look at the
Yeah,
stats.
mine's still losing.
I've got App Insights behind the scenes, so I can look at it, but I don't know.
Zoom out a little bit, Matt.
Zoom out.
I don't know.
If I do that,
There we
try
are.
that.
Ah, there we go.
Just I like how you've sort of scaled it up to support a good number of possible what's the word? Not continuous. When things are running side by side. So this code 6163, for example, there could be millions.
Yeah,
running
I
at
don't.
once.
There are some limitations at the moment. You have to have a Microsoft email address to be able to run a quiz. That's going to change soon. I'm in the process of putting through some changes for that, but yeah,
That possibly limits the number of people who are using this. Actually,
maybe a few. Yeah.
I can use it now.
You can, yeah. There's some other plans. I mean, most of the changes you're going to see are going to be behind the scenes, so there's not going to be major. But this graphics overhaul, one of our business graduates did some wonderful designs on Figma for me, so I took her designs and then applied what you'll see today. So, are we about there?
Good. Yeah. 9. Take me off. There's 8. And what are we doing? We doing first and second?
Yeah. Enough people there for tonight.
I think that's 10 of us in there, and there's 11 in the room. So you'll be the 11th one, I'm assuming.
I would guess
if anybody's stuck, say now before Matt clicks start. No, everybody seems okay.
Right then,
Yeah,
is everyone ready? I can't see chat,
for it.
so if anyone is talking, then
yeah.
Okay, let's go. So how much time off, an unfortunate question after today's announcement, but will Microsoft US employees get?
Unlimited.
Well, there's a button you can press.
Actually, I'm
You're not
referring to
meant
the people who got. Yeah.
What's this? Spoiler.
Oh, I wasn't looking at the screen. I was looking at my screen.
And it's not like masterminding.
Yeah.
You have to press the button.
You've never done a quiz before.
No, clearly not.
Oh, dear.
Ready? Next one up. Anyone struck with the Defender ASR rules last week? What does ASR stand for?
I like the new buttons on the
I know, they're
mobile.
very Xboxy, aren't they?
They are. Oh, yeah, that's a cool thing. Yeah.
Surface reduction. Yeah, I guess everyone lost all their shortcuts this week then.
Oh, God, yeah. Yeah.
Next one. Can you connect to Azure Virtual Desktop using the MSTC remote desktop client? The correct answer is no, apparently, according to the documentation. Which of the following is not a supported location for customer data in AVD?
I just dropped them for a second. So I was like, no.
China, quite right. Well done, everyone. What's the Azure CLI extension for ABD? So if I do AZ something, so in the case of it's AZ storage for Azure Storage or AZ AKS for AKS, what's the one for? It's desktop virtualization. One of you knew that. Yeah, bit of a sneaky one, that one. What does HCI stand for? See how many people were paying attention. I was quite proud of the X answer there. Hyper-converged infrastructure, which is a great term. Which region is not supported by the Azure Stack HCI registration service? Again, I went trolling through the docs for these. So. And the answer may surprise you. It's North Europe.
Oh.
Apparently. Available in West Europe, but not in North. What's the maximum number of physical servers allowed in an Azure Stack HCI deployment? Most of these are going to be random guesses, I think. It's 16. 2. How much was the initial investment from Microsoft in OpenAI, the creator of ChatGPT, in 2019? $1 billion. What version of Windows stopped getting security updates last week? Unless I suspect you're a defense customer, in which case you pay us a lot of money to keep supporting it. Windows 7 was the correct answer. Well done. And our winner for tonight is Dean, with, I'm assuming, Richard in second place. Well done, both. Did I get that right? Is that you, Richard?
Oh, yeah, that's me. Thank you ever so much.
Excellent. So what do we think of the new look?
Yeah, it's great. I mean, I didn't see the old look, but this is awesome.
Yeah, I've watched this evolve from something that very rough and ready to something that looks quite nice.
Almost professional now.
Yeah,
I'm
you
back.
shouldn't have told us that you had an intern that used Figma. Otherwise, it would have been more
I'm back. Sorry, guys. I dropped then for a second. Did we get the winners?
So we've got Dean and we've got Richard.
Cool. That's Richard Jackson. Yeah, Richard, you just, cool. And the gang. Dean, I know, well, send me your email address anyway, just so I use the right one. And Richard, can you do me the same? Drop me whatever, LinkedIn, Twitter, anything, and I'll get those organized. And I was winning then. I was in first place and I kept dropping all the time. So I was just pressing random answers and getting it wrong. Cool. Brilliant. Thanks again, Matt. That was awesome as always. Right, shall we wrap up tonight's event then? Cool. Well, yeah, thanks everybody for coming. Huge shout out to our speakers, Johan and Sameer. You know, I'm sure you'll agree, for giving up their time and coming on and kind of educating us on these areas. Been fantastic again tonight. Really appreciate the guys coming on there and giving us those sessions. And obviously, thanks for everybody joining as well. Really do appreciate you giving up your time of an evening, coming on and learning something. You know, hopefully a little quiz, bit of fun at the end as well. Kind of works out well for you. So. Finally, if you do get a chance and you can either log on to that URL or scan that QR code and drop us a little bit of feedback, that would be great. But save the date. The next meetup, actually, we're in the February meetup now, so we could stay here for an entire month, couldn't we, really? But the next meetup will be on the 15th of February. I'll get that uploaded and obviously the agenda sorted. Just waiting for confirmation of one speaker now. Look out for that one. But yeah, thank you, everybody. For now, it's been a pleasure. Any parting words of wisdom for any?
Great.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Cheers, guys.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone.
Cheers.
See you all
Bye-bye.
soon.
Cheers. Thank you very much.
See you.
Well, I've just seen one of the first people, by the way, John, that's got cut from Microsoft. Where's he gone?
Hang on 1 second. Let me stop the recording before you say anything more.